Thank you for having us. It is great. What I know of the UU, somebody had mentioned it, there are a lot of similarities in alignment. And so we're just excited to be amongst you guys that are focused on a lot of the same things that Baha'is are. And so we're going to just explore the Baha'i faith, right? One of the core principles here, there's no clergy. So Rich and I are not, we're not sanctioned. We're not, we are here just as ourselves, right? Our interpretations, are just how we understand the Baha'i faith is very much our own individual. So by no means don't take anything that we say to be, anything that is being, proselytizing or told to you. We just wake up every day like the UU and look to better ourselves and better the world. The Baha'i faith is just the set of beliefs, if you will, or religion that we just identify with. But we'll tell you a little bit high level, because the Baha'i faith, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of beauty. We're not going to get into who had the book that said it was long. Somebody had said, there you go, right? We're not going to do a deep dive into that, but we'll hopefully give you a sense of a sort of bird's eye view of the Baha'i faith, some of the principles. But we wanted to make this interactive. Rich and I are not here to talk to you guys. I mean, we will talk while you eat, and then as the plate's empty, we'd love for a conversation. I'll pause there. I don't know, Rich, if there's anything you want to.
No, just on the heels of that, we might actually ask, to be interactive, we actually might ask some of you to read some of the slides that we have up here. So when we get to that point,
if it's too small, we'll just go ahead and read it.
We'll do it ourselves, yeah.
Probably. We didn't know if we'd have a big screen or small screen.
Yeah, that's right.
So, go ahead.
Let's introduce ourselves.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we'll jump in.
We already talked about ourselves. We thought we would do a cheeky introduction slide. I'm married to a woman named Louisa, and we live in Sudbury, and I have 3 kids. And there's nothing metaphoric about us being in this boat here, but this is just a trip that we were in. I grew up in Wayland. I lived in Concord for past 28 years, and I've moved to Sudbury, so I'm keeping it in the dual county league. All right? See, someone got it. And again, I became a Baha'i when I was 19 years old. I had known about it for a while because my sister, who's 10 years older than me, had also become a Baha'i. 2 other brothers have also become Baha'is in my family, so it made an impact on our family. So go ahead.
Cool. This is my crew. This was for Halloween. We were dressed as the Inside Out movie characters. But I was born and raised in France, and we came to the Cambridge area 35 years ago and never left. That wasn't the plan, but we're still here in the area. My wife and I moved to Acton about almost 6 years ago because we had a growing family and needed more space than Somerville could offer at the time. My wife is German, so we've made the French and German thing work for now, which is great.
During World Cups.
That's yeah, and actually it's a house divided when the teams play each other. But there's one thing I wanted to say before we get into like an introductory video. So again, you guys can eat. It's about a 5-minute video. It was special done on CBS, but it was a great question by Jeff. What do you know of the Baha'i faith? And I'm actually surprised. There's quite most of you somehow have an association with, know somebody, have heard of it, have been, and eaten a falafel at the garden, or been to the temple in India. And it is as was described, I think, Diane, you were describing it, right? The lotus. No, don't worry about it. It's okay. Yep. There are 9 doors. And the reason why it is a lotus plate. It's a very beautiful temple, but it was specifically designed to be open from all directions. And I think it's a really cool segue into the Baha'i faith and with alignment to the UU, that it's about sort of everything. There's not just one religion or all that. It's really, wherever you are, wherever you come from, there is an entrance into this temple. And it's very metaphoric in that sense, that the Baha'i faith is that. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, right? The door is open. So I don't know if you want to just go in.
Yeah, so we have there was a nice 5-minute story done on the Baha'i faith in CBS. You guys may have seen them. They were featuring different religions. And as Anthony said, this story, or this story is focused on the Chicago area, which is interesting because that's where the first mention of the faith was made at the Congress of World Religions in 1893. It was the first time they did that, the World Religions. And that's where the mention of the faith was made, and that's really where the origins of the faith in the United States started. So let's get into this.
In our series, World of Worship, we're exploring different ways people practice faith and religion around the globe. Today, we're taking a look at one of the fastest growing religions in the world, the Baha'i faith. There are now more than 100,000 Baha'i communities worldwide. CBS This Morning's Saturday co-host, there she is, Dana Jacobson. Hey, Dana, recently visited one in Wilmette, Illinois. So the question is, Dana, what's the heart of this religion?
Well, Gail, the one word that we kept hearing to describe the Baha'i faith was unity. In Arabic, it means follower of glory. It was founded in 1844 in Iran, and the religion teaches the oneness of all world religions with principles that seem universal. If you're intrigued, come on with me now on a journey to the Mother Temple of the West.
Just outside Chicago, on the shores of Lake Michigan,
construction started in 1921.
Sits the oldest surviving Baha'i house of worship.
Every Baha'i temple has 9 sides, 9 doors, 9 gardens, and fountains.
What's the significance of 9?
9 is a symbol of completeness and unity.
Joyce Litoff was attracted to the Baha'i faith because she says it teaches what she already believes.
My mother was Jewish, my father was Catholic, and then I married a Jewish man, so I've actually lived in 2 religious communities.
Yeah.
And when I learned about the Baha'i faith that embraces the teachings of other religions, it made total sense to me.
The idea of oneness is carved into the temple's exterior, which includes the Jewish Star of David, the Christian cross, and the Star and Crescent of Islam.
And is the idea that this is encompassing all religions, all faiths?
Well, that's a little bit of a misconception that the Baha'i faith is a mishmash, that we believe everything. We believe in this progressive revelation that the teachings of these great spiritual teachers, they all had their time and place. And so we embrace the religions that came before.
Krishna. All right.
Baha'is believe theirs is the religion of the future. Inside each temple, there's one dome representing one God.
Be generous in your days of plenty.
At least twice a day, there are prayer services with readings from various world religions, but no sermons and no clergy. That lack of ritual is partly what drew 28-year-old Matthew Cotton to the faith.
We lived in mostly all-black neighborhoods.
He was raised Catholic on the south side of Chicago.
What did your mom think when you were coming here?
She was very supportive. At first she wanted to ask some clarifying questions that if this was a cult. And so, I told her to the best of my knowledge, it didn't seem like a cult to me,
right.
That this really seemed like a global world religion of people engaging with their fellow citizens who weren't Baha'is in order to be of service to humanity.
What is the united community that the Baha'i faith is trying to achieve?
To me, building unity looks like creating opportunities for everyone to see themselves as part of one family. So
no matter race.
Exactly.
No matter economic status.
Yes, exactly.
Gender, anything.
Yes, seeing each other first as souls.
We may come in different colors. We're humankind.
Music director Van Gilmer has been working toward racial justice since the Civil Rights era. In 1963, he participated in sit-ins in Greensboro, North Carolina.
The idea of one humanity is very attracting. We talked about it in my church, but my church is African American. That church in Greensboro, North Carolina is still African American. All the churches in Greensboro, North Carolina are either one race or another race. We say and we believe one thing, but when it comes to what we're doing about it, if we're not showing it, if we're not working at it,
practicing,
then those were the things that influenced me to become a Baha'i.
Because there's no hierarchy in the religion, Baha'is around the world elect at least 9 people to represent them in their local spiritual assemblies.
There are no ministers. So the burden is back on the individual to not only read the writings that the best thing in my sight is justice.
Right.
To be just, not to just read or have somebody talk about it to me, but try to figure out how I'm going to be just in the things that I do.
A community working toward justice by focusing on practicing instead of preaching.
Now, there are somewhere between 5 and 6 million Baha'is worldwide and about 177,000 here in the United States. There are 8 continental Baha'i temples, making it the second most geographically diverse religion in the world, and that's behind Christianity.
Those temples are really stunning.
They're beautiful.
Yeah,
They're all
really
beautiful.
stunning.
A lot of architects apparently in the faith.
I knew nothing about it. That was very interesting, Dana, to bring us the details of it. I like what he said. One humanity is very attractive.
And he was talking about in the 60s, he told us all these stories about, obviously, he's a black man in North Carolina at the time, and white and black together at a time where that didn't happen. He would see a white family show up and would think, why are they here and what is going on? So this has been their message from the beginning, that idea of unity.
All right, Danny.
Thank you very much.
So I'm assuming some of those things resonate with you. I think some of the things you heard, yeah. I don't know, do people have questions right now? We can continue on if there are no burning questions.
It's about is there a music traditions in the church?
Music is really encouraged, and it's there's a lot written about music. One of my favorite quotes is about how music is the ladder for the soul to progress. So it's very much encouraged, and there's no homogeneous type of music. It's whatever culture, whatever their music is, it's celebrated. Yes.
Yeah. I'm so used to hierarchical.
Yeah.
And leadership.
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out what holds you together and what organizes you.
Yeah.
For instance, with music or just
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, go to the next slide. I'll introduce that. So to your question, it's music for sure. The Baha'i faith and founders have talked about the arts being sort of ladders to the soul, and music is clearly part of that. So any expression of art, music, photography, drawing, painting, things like that is something that the Baha'i writings do definitely talk about and encourage. To your question, Ruth, and it was mentioned here at the end when you saw people dropping envelopes in the ballots, and I was talking to Craig about it, and I could just see the steam coming out of his ears, and he was like, what? Explain that again? So there are 3 main central figures in the Baha'i faith. There is Baha'u'llah, who is the prophet founder, the manifestation of God that Baha'is recognize and identify. And it was mentioned in here, progressive revelation. Baha'is believe that religion is one story. That the prophets of Krishna and Buddha and Zoroaster and Abraham and Moses, none were greater than the other, and Jesus, and Muhammad, but they all came sort of progressively and successively. And so Baha'u'llah is the prophet that Baha'is believe is for this day. They said for the future in the video, but sort of for this day, right? Baha'u'llah was born or passed away and appointed his son Abdul-Baha. So Abdul-Baha, so the first key figure is Baha'u'llah. I'll quickly mention his forerunner was the Bab, right? So the 3 key figures, Baha'u'llah at the center of it. The Bab came before him to prepare the way. John the Baptist type, just as if that makes any more sense. But when Baha'u'llah passed, he prescriptively, in his writings, sort of passed the Baha'i faith on to be carried forth by his oldest son, Abdul-Baha. So it was very sort of drawn out and explicitly written that when I pass, my son will carry, and his son was Abdul-Baha. So Abdul-Baha did a lot of traveling, and we have a quote here because actually in 1912 he gave a big talk at a Unitarian conference in Boston on Tremont Street where there were about 700 or so ministers. We have it outlined here, 800 Unitarian ministers and so on. And there's just a little excerpt from that we'll get into. But Abdu'l-Baha then sort of helped the Baha'i community, Ruth, govern itself or take the religion forward. And so in the Baha'i writings, from Abdu'l-Baha being sort of the perfect exemplar, if you will, right? He then laid out ways to really sort of paraphrase this whole thing and explain it succinctly. Baha'is then, as you saw here, govern themselves and carry forth by having local spiritual assemblies. Communities that have at least 9 members vote for who they think should best represent, and there's no campaigning. No, so at a local level, Baha'is govern themselves at that. But there's no, we've mentioned there's no clergy, but there's no hierarchical. It's just the community elects the 9 members that they feel best represent them and so on. And then each region, and then it kind of zooms out. Each region, the Northeast has like a regional council, and every country has a national spiritual assembly carrying forth sort of the next. So there's, hopefully, Ruth, that answers your question. There is no hierarchy. It's just that each Baha'i community elects their local spiritual assembly, which you saw a little bit of. It's a very, quiet, who you vote. You don't go out and sort of campaign for others or lift others. You just vote very privately and confidentially to yourself, to your community, who you think should best lead. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Let's give some.
Okay, go ahead, Diane.
Is it Sunday that the people gather? Is that the traditional religions?
We Baha'is, we have our own calendar.
Okay.
And we essentially come together for what would be considered a church service every 19 days. So it could be any day of the week. So there's 19 months of 19 days, which is 360. And then we have what is called an intercalendary period, which always starts on my birthday. And it's a time for celebration and gift giving, in case you're wondering. No, so we meet every 19 days. And we're able to come together. We have a spiritual portion, and then we have a business portion, and then we have a social portion. That's basically how it's structured.
That's what I was getting. Was there a script? Can you answer that?
Yeah, and right now we meet in people's homes. Where if you're in a community where you have a community center, you would meet in the community center. But the pulling together of what is read for the spiritual portion is up to the host of the host has the snacks, and then they put together the devotional period. So the only other thing I want to say about what Anthony was talking about was, is my microphone here? There we go. I've joked in the past when people have said to me they don't like organized religion, I say, well, Baha'i faith's for you. But that's just being funny. It is organized. We have an elected institutions, and then we have appointed institutions. And the elected appoint the appointed. And again, when we're elected at a local level, national level, it's all very egalitarian. There's no campaigning. You don't want to be elected, and you don't not want to be elected. So if you're asked to serve on the local spiritual assembly, then you serve. Yeah. So, but that's basically how it's organized.
Great question. Yeah, Craig. Are there? You said that you meet in people's houses.
Yes.
That would be fairly limiting then in terms of the size of your group.
What?
Do you have like other groups that meet in assembly halls or?
Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah.
It would require a bigger area.
Yeah, I mean, again, so Boston used to have a center where they would meet. They ended up selling it, I think, I'm not sure for what reasons. Because sometimes just having a building is a burden by itself. But in like New York City, so when they do their feast, when they do their gatherings, they'll break it up into like 10 different groups. And New York has a center, so they'll use that, or they'll use people's homes. But like in Concord, where I just came from, there were, 14, 15 families, and we had 50 people. We would sometimes cram 35, 40 people into a home. Yeah. We just had 29 at our condo the other day. But you're able to do it, you know.
So the three major religions, at least major in our circles, so Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, the concept of heaven and hell, punishment, sins, all of this, guilt structure. Does Baha'i religion has any of that in its process? Like, what encourages you? Let's say in old days, punishment and burning in hell would discourage you from doing something that undesirable.
So there is, I guess you would say, theology in the Baha'i faith. There are guidelines. There's laws. There's teachings, spiritual teachings that we have, and we're actually going to talk a little bit about that. Yeah.
But in essence, Baha'is don't believe in heaven and hell. It's about a growth of your soul, your spirit, and your nearness to God. Right? Baha'is believe in an afterlife. We don't know what it is, but it's not a separation of, you lived a good life, you lived a bad life, you're heading down. It's our task while we're on earth is to develop our soul and our spirit for the next world. And the next world is headed towards God, right? How close you get to God, but Baha'is don't have a heaven or hell sense. Ruth, you had your hand up a couple times. I want to make sure we don't miss you. Did you have a follow-up? No. Okay. So actually for this, one of the quotes we talk about, I alluded to it a little bit, but I think very much in line with the UU, where again, it's sort of spiritual exploration and journey, and then also the, serving community and social action and the betterment of the world. So Abdu'l-Baha, when he was here at the conference, he talked about progress in life in general, just that things are always moving, right? Technology, everything sort of moves in one direction. And he spoke about a lot of, about unity and love and equality and so on. But one of the things that he talked about was progress for the material world and also our spirit. So progress is of two kinds, material and spiritual. The former is attained through observation of the surrounding existence and constitutes the foundation of civilization. Spiritual progress is through the breaths of the Holy Spirit and is the awakening of the conscious soul of man to perceive the reality of divinity. Material progress ensures the happiness of the human world. Spiritual progress ensures the happiness and eternal continuance of the soul. I think that happens, right?
With capitalistic approach.
Sure. With a twist.
We have another video for you. Actually, 2 minutes, very short. I hope you can read it and there isn't any glare on it because it's not audible.
It's 9 facts about the Baha'i faith, and that do a very good job of, I think, aligning with the UU principles as well. There's a few of them that almost directly relate. 2 minutes flashes 9 facts.
And then after that, we'll we'll talk more about 3 of them. So 9 facts about the Baha'i faith, and it should give you enough time to read them. hard to see. Can everybody see that? It's a glare.
So from those 9, we wanted to just highlight 3.
Yeah, was this me or you?
This is you.
We didn't practice. Yeah, so one of the principles is the independent investigation of the truth, meaning that the onus is really on the individual to investigate reality. And that reality can be a spiritual reality and material reality. And this is really fundamental to our beliefs as Baha'is. In doing so, it helps you to free yourself from superstitions. That's really the aim. Superstitions from prejudices. If you are egoless in this approach, then you're able to remove outdated modes of thinking, then you can approach this truth or this reality. And this, again, I mentioned it, but it's both education. It's education both spiritually and materially. And that materially could be science, it could be crafts, it could be music. These are all important, as well as the spiritual portion. And Baha'is do this in a practical way by reading the writings of the Baha'i faith. There's many writings. There isn't just one book. There's many tablets that Baha'u'llah, the Bab, Abdu'l-Baha have written that we use to educate ourselves, and we do this on a daily practice. So in the morning and in the evening, we will read prayers as well as deepen ourselves. But we also do it in a community. We'll have study circles where people get together, or deepenings where we come together and read the writings to help internalize it and turn it into action is really what we're doing. And I'll read this quote here. The first teaching of Baha'u'llah is that man should investigate reality, for reality is contrary to dogmatic interpretations and imitations of essential forms of belief to which all nations and peoples adhere to tenaciously. Reality is one, and one found, it will unfurl all mankind. Reality is the oneness or solidarity of mankind. And I think nowadays one of those contemporary realities is that we're all part of one human family, and we combat the racism that we have in society. And for Baha'is, we do that through, working with other working with other organizations, but also internalizing the teachings of the Baha'i faith to change yourself so that we can, change help change our community or assist our community. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment.
Before we move on, are there any thoughts or questions for this, John?
So you mentioned a bunch of texts, and they're all, I guess, old. Are there any new texts being written that you contemporary stuff?
Yeah, but even the ones that were written 150 years ago, you'll be amazed at how contemporary they are in what they say. But yeah, the Universal House of Justice, which is the international body that governs the Baha'i world, or looks out for the welfare of the Baha'i world, they will publish. It's not considered holy text. It'll just be considered authoritative text that we use to read and get guidance from. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm struggling with the lack of structure, and I know there has to be internal structure. You can't be without it. But where did these writings come from?
So Baha'u'llah. So there's holy writings.
The son of.
Yeah. Well, there's Abdu'l-Baha, who's the son of.
Yep. Oh.
And then there's Baha'u'llah and the Bab, and both of those individuals we consider to be manifestations of God, like Christ, like Muhammad, and they have what we consider revealed text, like it's from God. They revealed it, and now those are the holy scriptures that we have.
they write them, or did men 100 years from them, like with the Christian teaching? I mean, how did these?
So Baha'u'llah lived in the 19th century. And so he was born in 1817 and he lived till 1892. And in that period, so he had a long period where he was able to write letters he wrote letters to the kings and rulers of the world. And all of those are considered texts of Baha'u'llah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's what we use for guidance. And then Abdu'l-Baha helped to interpret what the Baha'u'llah had to say.
But there are a lot of holy books that Baha'u'llah himself penned and wrote, stuff that Baha'is adhere to.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the, I don't want to say advantages, but bounties for Baha'is is that we have so much from the Prophet founder, from Baha'u'llah, written himself. Not that there's anything wrong with gospel, but that this was very much, his writings that Baha'is, hold to and read. Abdu'l-Baha, his son, became, as Rich mentioned, sort of the interpreter, just kind of helping further along, but everything ties back to Baha'u'llah's writings, his own.
I'll move on to the next one.
And this came up a lot, unity, oneness. Baha'is, at its core, really just truly believe in the oneness of mankind, the oneness of religion. Like that is, just fundamental. If anybody at work asks me about the Baha'i faith, I tell them, I don't drink, or I don't, we fast from March 2nd to March 21st. So at work, I don't eat. And the question is always, what is it? And so we talk about it. And what is the Baha'i faith? It always is really simple to just talk that Baha'is believe essentially at its core that man is one, like reality. I mean, humanity is one. The family is one. And you heard even in the video talking about that. So Baha'is, or Baha'u'llah, taught that there is no difference, right? Every person who wakes up is under the same sun. There's no, greater human, part of it. That's just one. And then religion is one. This is a conversation for a whole, on its own. But we don't believe that there are different gods, right? In the major religions that you spoke about, it's not, on this part of the world, it's, that God, and in this other part of the world, it's another God. There seems to be conflict in the major religions. Baha'is believe that there is only one linear, progressive story, and that religion is one. So oneness is something that comes up again and again in the Baha'i faith. And I'll just read this quote related to the oneness. The diversity in the human family should be the cause of love and harmony, as it is in music, where many different notes blend together in the making of a perfect chord. If you meet those of a different race and color from yourself, do not mistrust them and withdraw yourself into your shell of conventionality, but rather be glad and show them kindness. So, oneness of humanity, one family, and one religion.
And again, I've had Unitarian friends for years. I went to high school with them. I have friends in Concord, and they would always say to me, "Oh, we have very much in common," and this is one of those, for sure. And I know how much, again, because I lived in Concord for so long, and I'm involved in, I'm part of the Human Rights Council in Concord, but I know what the Unitarian Church does in Concord, in particular, with their race. A task force. Some of our Baha'i friends in Concord also work with their task force for immigrants who come to the United States, and because they're Persian and they know Farsi, they're able to work with them, and so there's a lot of collaboration there. But it's that outlook that, hey, we're all humans. That's it. Okay. So one of the principles that guides the way how we operate in the world is our twofold moral purpose. I kind of alluded to it before when Anthony and I were looking at your Unitarian Church website. It alluded to it. It actually talked about how you're working towards your own personal growth and then helping the community. And that's really what we do as well. And what's interesting is this twofold moral purpose. You don't go, you don't first say, hey, I'm going to improve myself, and until I get to a certain point, then I start helping people. They happen simultaneously. You can't separate the two. You grow, you help people, and you grow. You try to internalize the teachings to help improve yourself, but then you have to act in community, right? No person is an island. So and this spiritual growth that we talk about is really meant to be done in community, so you can kind of get that sometimes friction, but sometimes assistance. Like if you have a common cause with other people and you're working towards the same goal, it just helps everything improve, both community and excuse me, and for yourself. So it's to develop our potentialities and use those potentialities for the community, and they're inseparable. And then just the last quote here is, sorry. And the honor and distinction of the individual consists in this, that he among all the world's multitudes should become a source of social good. And I think that's it for the slides. And so now, if you have questions, there's one website here, Baha'i.org, that is a really good source. And if you ever were interested in contacting us, you can. And I did bring some more literature if you guys are interested in looking at it, stuff on race, unity, just general information on the Baha'i faith. But if there's any other questions, I'd love to hear them.
In my travels are shaped, the house was 6-pointed stars, flaming chalices. I know what that means. Is there a symbol for the Baha'i faith?
Yeah, there's actually a couple. You can almost see it in this image here. It's a 9-pointed star.
They mentioned it in the video too. 9
one.
is completeness. So for the Baha'i faith, 9. So you would see a 9-pointed star. So all the temples have 9 sides. A 9-pointed star would be the symbol, if there was one for the Baha'i faith.
There's also this one, which is called the ring symbol. Oftentimes, I don't have it on. And this is some calligraphy, combination of 2 letters, B and H, for Baha, which means glory. And the 2 stars there are the 2 symbols that represent the 2 manifestations of the Bab and Baha'u'llah. So there's several, sometimes even a 5-pointed star for the Bab.
So I think the Communist Manifesto was inspired by this without God, though.
Say it again?
The Communist Manifesto, the communist ideology in one time wanted universalism, no prejudices and all that stuff. I wouldn't be surprised their writing can be behind this writing. I would be surprised if they were inspired by this to some degree, because it's very...
Is the Covenant Manifesto a Unitarian Universalist?
No.
Communist Manifesto. Oh, yeah. It didn't work out. Yeah.
That's because they didn't have spirituality. They didn't have a moral compass. They didn't have a moral compass.
That's right. They eschewed any relationship to God.
The theory of the materialistic...
Yeah.
There wasn't a check, a mental check, a balance.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Spirituality brings in.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what they felt.
Yeah.
Did you have your hand
I think
up?
that was, yeah.
So, will there be a letter of a spiritual guide?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, right, as I mentioned, the one story of religion, this progressively unfolding story through existence. Baha'is do believe that in 600, 1,000 years, there will be another when the world and humanity then needs, sort of a version 3.0 or, like an update to their operating system, right? Like that's the way that sort of Baha'is look. But yeah, I mean, the expectation is that Baha'u'llah is not the seal, or is the last or the alpha or the omega, that Baha'u'llah is for this day and age. And Baha'is do believe that at some point there will be another manifestation that God will send and carry the religious story, forward for the time that civilization is in.
So, One of the questions is doing some out of church ahead. Is there, how did the Baha'i faith fund itself?
Say it
How
again.
does it fund itself?
Oh, fund itself, yeah. Through Baha'i contributions.
Yep.
However, and maybe this doesn't matter, but we can't accept funds from anybody who's not a Baha'i. That's the only difference. But it's through contributions, and it's very important, and it's emphasized the need for, to grow the faith. You have to have the resources to do it. Yeah. To
Great
give
questions.
sacrificially. Go ahead.
So, well, wait a minute. Emmeline, did you want? No. So, okay. When you meet every 19 days,
Yeah.
I know what to expect when I meet on a Sunday morning at FPC.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's it like coming together? It's not chaos. What do you do?
Okay. Well, we're hosting ours this afternoon,
Yeah.
so I'll talk about that.
19.
What's that?
So this is day 19.
Yes, close.
Correct. There are 3 portions to the feast. The first is a spiritual portion where we gather, and we will offer prayers. There will be a program where there will be some Baha'i writings from from the Bab, from Abdul Baha. Some that will, each feast, so there's 19 months, as Rich had mentioned. Each feast has what's the word I'm looking for, like a dominion or salt, like
A spiritual quality.
a theme
associated with
so
it.
the writings will be something to, will be in line with whatever that month's sort of religious theme is, but then also just prayers in general, right? So we gather as a community and we say prayers together.
Is
then-
there leadership, or do you just
It's just-
spontaneously break out? Or
So the hosts will have a program. The host will have, but then there's an open end. The host, yeah. So whoever, so like we have to. My wife has reminded me a lot of times, you're in charge of the program, Anthony. I keep telling her, I know, honey, I know. So she's feverishly cleaning the house right now. But yeah,
with
so
3 kids in tow.
Yeah, exactly. The hosts put together a program, and when we say program, again, it's sort of lighthearted. The emphasis really though is on having some program that the host sets forth, or somebody, if the hosts are too busy, somebody will come. There's always a program though for the feast, and then there's an open spiritual portion after that program. So if anybody wants to just offer prayers or any kind of devotion beyond that, and then at a certain point, once sort of everybody has agreed that the spiritual portion is done, if there are children, they go and somewhere else, and then the Rich had mentioned business portion. The business portion is really, I guess, like community issues, right? Event planning, hosting feasts, who are hosting the next 5 feasts. National Assembly will usually send a letter to all of the communities. So the temple you see in Chicago there, the National Spiritual Assembly for the Baha'is sits in Wilmette, just around the corner from this temple. And there's usually just a feast letter that is sent from them that the Baha'is will read and reflect on, make comments. So that's the business administrative portion. And then after that is a social where there's food, the kids come back, right, of age. Children under a certain age, obviously, if they want to sit in there, we encourage that. But the 4-year-olds get a little squiggly wiggly. But that's the structure. Every 19 days, the host sets forth a program for the spiritual portion. The administrative portion is reading the letter from National Spiritual Assembly, and then just dealing with anything sort of, community-based, right, event planning type stuff, and then a social portion. So every 19 days we gather for that.
Very good.
Great questions.
2 more questions.
Yeah, hey, Sue went up,
3
yeah.
more questions.
Yeah, I'm curious, but you mentioned the fasting, and you also mentioned kids. So I was wondering about 2 things. One, are there sort of coming of age ceremonies that I kind of like a bar mitzvah or a confirmation, or so as we do coming of age, and how do you deal with religious situation in general? And the other one is, are there sort of celebrations or feasts or whatever within a church calendar, like Easter, like Christmas?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
I can take that.
Other faith holidays.
Yeah, I'll let you take the faith holiday. About the, in the Baha'i writings, Baha'u'llah explains that at the age of 15 is the age of maturity.
Yeah.
So at the age of 15, it is actually on the child themselves to decide whether they want to, if they were raised a Baha'i, they can decide whether they want to be a Baha'i or not, maintain. So at the age of 15 is a significant age for Baha'is that would signify, so there's no quinceañera or bar mitzvah or something like that at that age, but that's something that as a 15-year-old Baha'i child, you get to decide whether you want to be a Baha'i or not. In terms of the other parts, I'll let.
And then for spiritual education, we have children's spiritual education, and it's really open for everybody. We invite the whole community of wherever you are to partake, not just Baha'is. And then we have junior youth classes, and junior youth is a special focus because it's really that transitional age between young elementary and high school. And then we have youth classes as well, and then we have adult spiritual education classes, which we call study circles or institutes, where we study the writings together. So the education is just obviously very important. And then in regards to the calendar, we have lots of holidays. So the birth of Baha'u'llah, the ascension of Baha'u'llah, the ascension of Abdul Baha. I think we have, 11 through the year. Maybe, I'm not sure the number, maybe 8 that we actually suspend work from. And then we have a New Year's celebration the first day of spring. So we fast up until the first day of spring, then we have a New Year's celebration. But we have lots of holidays.
So
wait, we have 3 questions here.
So
good.
In Judaism, there's a lot of post-original script writers. There's Talmud, there's Mishnah, there's all the over the generation philosophizing about the original writing. Do you use only original text? So you since then have some modern additions as time progresses?
Yes and no. Meaning, there are people who write about the Baha'i faith, but they're not considered authoritative text. Okay, so they're just taken in that light. There's the authoritative text, which everybody knows that's what it is, and that's really the Bible. And then there are people who will comment or talk about history and talk about the meaning of these things, but everybody usually says, these are my own interpretations of what is being said.
It doesn't enter the traditional.
No.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Because in Judaism, all of it is
Yeah.
post-original text is really
Yeah.
part of what Judaism is
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
At least in the diaspora.
Yep.
In one of the slides, I noticed that it said that they don't take not interpretations of ancestral forms.
Yeah.
But in a way, given the structure of the way people are, they like organization, they like religious education, if there is some, or even the fasting, the holidays, it's sort of in ancestral forms, but we're doing it our own way as we're searching for our own truths. And it was doing, whether it's once a week or every 19 days, there's structure. And so we're taking the forms,
Yep.
but we're not going with the whole listening, and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we're really the Baha'i faith really has very little ritual, almost none. So those are ancestral forms that we've just stopped doing because the thought is that over time people have become so attached to the ancestral, the ritual, then they lose sight of what the light of the religion is.
So minimizing the ritual.
Yeah.
Correct. More emphasis on that.
Yeah.
It's a great question. Yep.
I'd like to go visit one. Can we do that in Massachusetts or New England?
Visit a temple?
Yes.
This is the only one in the United States.
In Wilmette.
Yeah, and it was so when Abdul Baha came here, he actually laid the cornerstone for it. So we consider it the holiest of all of the
North America.
In the world, the holiest of all of the temples. But you're welcome to go visit it. It's so much fun. It actually there aren't really Baha'i feasts ever hosted there. They're meant for all religions to come and visit. Yeah.
Well,
and then
what you could visit if you want is we locally have devotional. So there's feasts and there's the holidays Sue was asking about. There are also children's classes, which Rich mentioned, which we're also hosting. We by chance. That's right. Please don't. Please don't. You are not invited.
No, you're all welcome.
You're invited tomorrow, but today we have enough going on. No, of course. So every week, children's classes do happen, or junior youth groups.
Okay.
And then communities around Concord has their own, Sudbury has their own, but we have interfaith devotionals where it'll be over breakfast. Not as good, Jeff, don't worry. We won't have souffles like yours. But there are, so if you did want to just come, again, it's, there's no pressure to it, but we do have it, and there was my email address, happy to do it, but Acton has a devotional. I think that's the next one is like early March, a couple weeks from now, but they'll have it sort of monthly. So there are other ways, I feel like Rich is just not setting you up for success, Diane. Here, go to Chicago, right?
Well, you just wanted to go to a temple.
It's beautiful. No, it is truly beautiful. But if there was something more local that you did want to go, anyway, there's that. But you'd have to hike the, what?
Yeah. So Genesis is the Christian story of how things got started.
Yeah.
Do you have a similar story? And secondly, what's your definition of God?
You want to go to Genesis?
Hitting right into the theology now. Let's see, our origin. So I guess I would start with, to answer that, we believe that there really should be a balance between science and religion. And so we don't take literal forms from the Bible about the origin of the world, for example, like some people do. We consider it, kind of a spiritual analogy of how the world was formed. We would take more of a scientific view of how the world was formed. And there's more nuance to it. And honestly, it's been hard for me to wrap my mind around what has been said about, because our teachings say that man has always existed, and yet it hasn't always been in this form. In other words, like an acorn is always going to be a oak tree, but it's in such a different form, and over time it changes. And so that's the way we think about the evolution of humans. Yeah. But science and religion should agree.
And then the second part of the question about our view of God, in that oneness. So there's three onennesses in the Baha'i faith. Two, we sort of talked about the oneness of humanity. The other is oneness of religion, but the oneness of God. So Baha'is view God as an unknowable essence, a divine reality. So every prophet was manifested from God as a teacher from God, but wasn't the God. And even the teachers, if you sort of read the writings of these religions, right, there is the beauty in there that talks again about how they were sent from God. But Baha'is essentially believe that it is, call it what you want, but it's an unknowable essence, but it is singular.
Yeah. And what's interesting, ironically, I think it is, our goal in life is to know and love God. So how do you know God if he or she is unknowable? And that is, our access is through what the prophets have revealed to us. Like, that's as close as we can get to knowing God, really.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for breakfast.
Thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome.
And thank you for your questions.